All right, this is Sessions with Maplex. We're here with Adrian Shipley today, founder of The Aesthetic Principle. Good friend of mine from, I don't know, I'm going to say like a year ago now.
Yeah.
We worked together for a little while in downtown Louisville, working hard for the man, getting food delivered to people whenever they need it. How you doing today, sir?
I'm great, man. How about yourself?
I've been doing well since we last saw each other.
Yeah.
And been working on some projects myself.
Good.
I understand you're currently involved in several things.
Yeah. Several.
Yeah? That's what you were saying, man. You were like,
Several.
I don't even know where to start talking
Right.
about all the different things
Right.
I'm working on. I guess the first thing that you wanted to mention was the men's suit line that you're working on. What's up with that?
Yeah, actually, it's basically a dream that had been put off. Let's say over a little bit over 2 years ago when I first got back in town here in Louisville.
Yeah.
Moving back in from New York City.
If you will, I knew that you were from New York City, but just briefly talk about like your experience in New York City and how you ended up here from New York.
Well, I'm originally from Louisville.
Okay.
But I moved to New York City about a little bit, maybe about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was just New York was always calling me and tugging me.
Right.
And I made the leap. Honestly, I just made the leap. I didn't have anything but a dream just to get to the Big Apple, man. And I kid you not. Thankfully, I had a cousin that lived up there. So my hook was, I'll enroll in school. I'm giving it to you raw, Maple, man. I'm gonna tell you straight. See, you're the first person who's getting this.
Behind Adrian Shipley.
Exactly. So I enrolled in school, ended up getting accepted to the Art Institute of New York City.
Nice.
Where I studied film and video production. Started out with graphic design, but switched it over to film and video production.
Yeah.
So I had family that lived across the bridge in Montclair, New Jersey, which was about 30 minutes, from the city. So, man, I had to pretty much scrounge up and scrape up every penny just to put down the monies that were needed for enrollment, with school or whatnot.
I'm sure that's ridiculous too. Like I know that when I was thinking about going to school in New York, my biggest thought was, all right, well they have free colleges, so I'll just go to one of those. And then I found out, you've got to be a resident, you've got to live there for a certain amount of time before you can even think about that. And even in that case, I'm sure that the residents are like, well, I could go to a free college or I could go to a good college because it's going to cost me a lot of money. Right. So I'm sure that was really expensive to have to go through. But
yeah, it was definitely expensive. But more so. I didn't have a way to get there.
Oh, to school from Jersey?
No, from Kentucky to New York. But my cousin had called me out of the blue one day, man. He was like, man, my wife has to bring the kids back up, so, once you see about, hopping a ride, with her, just throw a little gas money or whatnot. So I was like, cool. I think I had maybe $200 to my name, and I ended up giving her, $100 of that.
Yeah.
So when I get to New York, it's and I had to spend money shipping off the rest of my clothes with Greyhound, because a lot of my stuff wouldn't fit into the vehicle or whatnot. So
you sent a bunch of your stuff Greyhound to meet up with you when you got there.
I had to go pick my clothes and stuff up at in Newark, New Jersey. Already accepted to school.
Yeah.
Upon getting there, I enrolled to school, and I was basically just waiting for housing to open up. Once a new housing would open up for me, that allowed me to move into the city.
Nice.
Was when I was introduced to Brooklyn, and Brooklyn, oh gosh, Brooklyn is probably my home.
Yeah.
Before I say Louisville, Kentucky is, unfortunately, man. Brooklyn just has that
I'm sure Brooklyn's got to be amazing, man.
Yes, it's so eclectic. So the energy is amazing. It's amazing. But yeah, that's how I got to New York, man. And like I said, it in the back of my mind, you know, I've always been this, you know, this guy that was about fashion. You know, I always like to, you know, stay sharp, or not necessarily say it was the crisp, you know, the most crisp, or that I had to have the latest trends or, you know, clothing and whatnot. But, you know, I like to think I got a little bit of style.
Right.
So nevertheless, man, I put that in the back of my mind, and I knew one day I'd possibly, at least hopefully, be able to get my hands on to doing, you know, crafting my own line. Right.
Doing the stuff that you were going to school for and whatnot.
Well, I did do those things. You know, I put together a video crew within my first couple of months of being there in school. I had about five of us videographers, you know, and I would hustle, you know, different shows. My first gig was a classic hip hop show, old school hip hop concert, which consisted of, my goodness, Dougie Fresh.
What?
I kid you not, man.
That's awesome.
The promoter, man, I told him, I was like, look, man, I'm a student. You know, I'm basically, if you let me shoot your show for free, I'll get you the editing, the tapes and all of that, you know, just work with me.
Yeah.
And he gave it to us, man, and that was my first one. I also was able to get in with SOBs. SOBs is a staple in New York City for live performances.
Yeah.
So people like, you name it, all type of Caribbean artists. Gil Scott-Heron, I got to record him, video, live.
Yeah.
And I'm a student, you know what I'm saying, in New York. I mean, in New York, just freshly there, from out of Louisville, Kentucky. A nobody to these people,
just
but
jumping in.
Yeah, I just jumped straight in, man.
That's awesome.
Man. I was. That's just one of the gigs, one of the few gigs. I met Spike Lee, ran up on Spike Lee during one of his sets in Brooklyn, introduced myself, gave him a card. Tracy Morgan, Tyra Banks.
Now, are you on speaking terms with any of these people? Because that would be awesome.
Well, yeah, I'm on speaking terms, but they probably don't remember me. But you know, but at the same time,
I'm just saying that seems like the kind of, like, if I had a chance to meet any of those people, like, I would have been like, all right, how can I talk to these people every week and make sure that they remember me? I mean, I'm sure that would be difficult to do for people like that with lots going on. It definitely was.
But like I said, I ran up to them. I seen them on the streets, so it was just like everyday life. You know, so
I had a kind of a similar experience when I was in New York a few years back, and with just a couple friends from one from high school, one was a friend of a friend, but we went to New York for a week and had a really amazing experience. One of the friends that I went with knew somebody who was doing real estate in New York, and so we had this free, really small, like, studio apartment, unfurnished but free for an entire week, and so we were totally psyched. And while we were there, we were just, like, walking through Manhattan, and we randomly saw Will Smith, like, walking across the street, and my friend was like, I love you, Will! And he was like, thank you, baby. And that was it. Like, I waved at him or something, but it was just kind of random, you know, experience meeting somebody who's big, and, like, he is so tall. Like, he looks tall, you know, on television in comparison to Carlton and everybody, of course. But, like, standing next to him, or, like, you know, 20 feet away from him, but, like, seeing him actually walk past, that guy is really tall. Like, I had no idea. I mean, and part of that may have just been, you know, me being starstruck or whatever, But yeah, it's really, I love the energy in New York, man. If I get a chance to go back anytime soon, I definitely will. But that's awesome that you got to experience all that. And
I did. Outside of that, man, I was grinding. I actually got a gig at to back up, you know, the field I was in. Started working. I worked a couple of years at the Brooklyn Heights movie theater. So I was started out as the projectionist, cashier, concessions. I did it all pretty much. You know, ran that. Even a buddy of mine, what got me off into the fashion aspect was a buddy of mine was wanting to kick off a T-shirt line.
Okay.
So he had actually been fortunate enough to meet up with Mark Echo. You know, a buddy of his introduced him to Mark Echo. Mark Echo gave him some pointers, blase. So he knew somebody who knew somebody that was backing his project.
Nice.
So he and I were pretty much hustling his T-shirts on the streets of Soho, New York, man. I'm talking about, you know, week in, week out. I'm talking about, like, man, we trying to birth dreams here.
Yeah, dude.
And what it did was it brought me back to my love for fashion, you know, in doing so. I enjoy film and video. That's cool, but
it's not your thing.
Right. It really wasn't it. So, you know, I thank him for that experience.
Yeah.
But, you know, man, when I came back home to Louisville, Kentucky, I said, man, somehow, even though I'm not in New York, I gotta do me.
Yeah, I gotta do something, something big that you're gonna really feel connected with.
Exactly. So then that's where the suit line started. I was able to pretty much develop my first suit, you know, upon coming back to Louisville.
But now, when you say develop, like, do you sew yourself?
I personally don't sew.
You do more of the designing of it.
The designing aspect, right?
Sure.
Right. I don't have time to.
Oh yeah, it takes a lot of work for sure.
Right.
I've looked into that a little bit. Like, I would love to make clothes, but I mean, it's you know what, and I've talked about this with many people, but like what I'm realizing more and more is that there's just roles that different people have to fill.
Yeah.
And somebody loves to sew.
Right.
Like, somebody wants to sew, and that's their passion, and they like to make clothes, and you know, they may be good at designing, but not as good at somebody else is.
Right.
And you know, you're obviously, you want to design, you know, you've got these ideas for, and that's a really important conceptual part too, is that being able to, you know, not just design one thing, but be able to see how this design can work with these other designs and go together to form a line of clothing, you know, that people are going to see and be attracted not just to one thing, but to the whole thing, and be like, well, I might not wear all of these, but I can appreciate the craftsmanship that's gone into it and the design that's gone into it. So yeah, I mean, you got to have other people. You got to have other people involved. So you got into designing the suits. You said the first one. What happened with that?
Yeah, it's actually it was a two-button, two-piece suit.
Okay.
That I love, but along the line came life, you know, and you know, and life
as it always does.
So it put my dreams of even launching the suit line off for a year or whatnot. But in between that time, I was blessed to have a baby girl that was born back in October.
Congratulations.
Thank you. She's my first. Super excited, but you know, and really got inspired again to after going through the closet and trying that suit back on. I was like, okay, man, it's time to get back, you know, to it. And this past February, during my birthday, I was able to showcase my tuxedo line, and that was awesome. That was awesome. So we went from a two-button suit to designing my first tuxedo. So, you know, and that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I say, I have it, you know, and that was my birth, you know, the birthing of the line or whatnot. So, you know, from here, I'm just basically looking for new talent that I can pretty much use and work with, collaborate with, to produce more of those suits and tuxedos. So it's a men's line, and it's nothing shabby at all.
Yeah,
nothing
it sounds classy, especially because it's a suit line. Like, some people, a lot of people probably would go into clothing design and just say, all right, I want to do men's clothing, maybe, you know, maybe specific to a gender, but they would be, you know, all over the place as far as suits, maybe like t-shirts, shoes, pants, but like having something that's specifically a suit line, like that sounds classy. Like that sounds like, you know, you specialize in suits, and so whenever somebody's coming through town, they're gonna get the aesthetic principle.
Right. And it's funny for you to mention two things that you mentioned. Number one, yes, they're gonna get the aesthetic principle, and for you to say the aesthetic principle, what does that mean?
Right.
The aesthetic principle is basically, if you break the word down, the aesthetic, you have to understand what aesthetics mean.
Right.
You know, when you're dealing with design and art and the different elements that come together to produce a certain thing. Right. that's phenomenal all by itself. There's certain certain pieces that have to go together, and then you're saying the principal. The principal is that's the head of the class. That is saying this is the standard right here. You know, so you combine the two. You have the aesthetic principle of, let's say, men's suits. Yeah. So you have the aesthetic principle of luxury automobiles. So the aesthetic principle is a lifestyle brand. Right. So you're talking about classy. Classy basically is. That's what the aesthetic principle represents. Right. So suits automatically fall in line, with that. So. Yeah.
Now, when you had originally told me about the aesthetic principle, at first I had a misconception completely, but then when I got more on board, my second impression was that it was more of a photography thing, and now I'm finally realizing that it's even larger than that and about business consulting. Right. And photography is a part of it. Designing suits is another part of it. But give me more of a big picture about the aesthetic principle in general.
Well, it's again it's lifestyle. It's a lifestyle brand. So what I did from the photography standpoint, I basically partnered up with a young lady that runs Alima Industries and
what is that?
Alima Industries is a talent and model agency. Okay. Along with, she also runs or is a partner with Studio 92, which is a model and talent agency. So, she and I both are from Louisville, Kentucky, but she does a lot of work in Dallas and Atlanta and all over the place. Yeah. So we basically wanted to, since we both love fashion, wanted to be able to bring something, to Louisville. So I just basically took my brand, collaborated with her brand, and we basically just tried to launch, whether it's real classy, nice, above standard,
like Snoop would do it.
Photo shoots, not like Snoop,
professional.
Yeah, professional, classy photo shoots that Louisville really isn't, used to. Right. Like a lot of the larger metropolitan cities are. So whether it's rooftop, something real plush and nice, things like that. So we wanted to be able to give Louisville that. But, Louisville slowly catching on.
I feel like Louisville is always an evolution. And when I first moved here from Southern Kentucky, I mean, it was the big city to me, and so I was, just enamored and looking forward to all the amazing sights and sounds and everything that would happen in Louisville. But yeah, as I've lived here, I can definitely see that, some people would say that Louisville's behind a lot of other big cities, and trends go through other big cities and then come to Louisville, and that's probably true to some extent. But I think more so, it's like you said, it's coming around to some things, but because of things like the internet, everybody has the same information. So it's more than it is, that the city's behind. It's that the people just haven't been ready to make that transition, to the way that it is in some other places. But in the same way, there are a lot of other places that are, I'm sure behind Louisville as far as that's concerned. But I mean, yeah, that sounds, we need something like that. We need somebody who is going to say, all right, we've got standards, we've got professionalism that we need to uphold, and we want people to look good. We want people to have a good time, because that's what, if you're either you're out there trying to have a good time or you're out there trying to show somebody a good time. Right, exactly. That's pretty much the whole market. Like, there's some other people that are just pissed off about something, but most of the time that's a transition between them trying to have a good time or show somebody a good time. And so you come in with the let's show everybody a good time. Let's show them a professional, classy time. Right. So
exactly. And that's something that I've always tried to give Louisville. Yeah. Always. Before I moved to New York City, I used to host live jazz events. Nice. And again, it was nothing short of classy. I'm talking about nice. But the city wasn't, supportive, wasn't too supportive of it, like I thought it should have been, so they wasn't ready for it. But
I've found it's difficult to get a lot of people to come to, especially new things. Like Like there's some things that I know about now that have been around for a year or so, and they're just starting to get some acclaim. They're just starting to get people that are like, oh yeah, I've heard about that. I haven't been to it yet. And that you'll get that a lot too. Like I heard about that. I had some friends that went to that, but I didn't go to it. But just actually getting people to come out to stuff can be a chore. A lot of the time.
Pulling teeth. It's like getting people to RSVP. Louisville people.
and even that, like you can get people to RSVP, and that doesn't even mean that they're going to show up a lot of time. You got to remind them like a week before, a few days before, the day before, the day of, like an hour before it's going to happen, and they still might be like all the way up until it. They'd be like, oh yeah, I'll definitely be there, and then an hour before they're like, oh, I forgot, I've got to go to my nephew's softball game or something like that. And you're just like, come on, just show up, just be there,
just commit.
Let's have a good time. Like you don't want to have a good time? Come on.
That's crazy.
But yeah,
man. So we've taken again the aesthetic principle, and it's pretty much having a lot of the things or interests that I enjoy.
Yeah.
And then putting it under one umbrella, basically. So you're speaking about the business consulting. You know, that pretty much ranges comes into effect because I love business. You know, I grew up in athletics, and went hard every time. You know, whether it's football, track, basketball. I'm a very competitive person. Very competitive person. So obviously, here comes this new sport called business.
Oh
you know, that I have embraced. Oh my goodness, and am so hungry. You know, to learn and so much more of it. But I treat it the same way. If I'm on the field, on the court, you know, and
it's funny that you say it that way. I don't mean to interrupt, but it's funny that you say it that way. Because I've been, you know, when I was younger, I got into video games and you know, sports also, and I played soccer for a little while, different things, and I've always been into games, you know, as a whole, video games or real games. But I feel like I got to a certain point in my life, and I just realized these are all the same thing over and over again. And you know, I can only get so far as the recognition that I get for doing these games. And so, you know, so now, like, video games, I might play one for a little while, be like, all right, this is really interesting, good graphics, good storyline, but I still lose interest pretty quickly. And so now I've transitioned to, like you said, business is the game. Like, and it's not, you know, it's not business from the 1950s. It's not business from, you know, our parents' generation, but it is business. And it's things that, you know, I just continue to research things and continue to learn more things, and I've gotten to a point now where I've identified several things I really enjoy doing and really enjoy coming back to and learning more about and sticking with, and I feel like I could do a lot of these things as my life, as my career, as my job, and that's obviously where you've gotten to, where you've got all these things. You're like, I like doing this, you know, I like doing all these different things. Let's do this. Like, let's get more people involved. Do it right. Do it professional, like you were saying.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, it's all a game. Like, it's all you do certain things, you get to the next level. You know, you get a power up. You know, you get recognition. Recognition is like a power up, and then you feel all energized and you're ready to go on to the next thing. Like, it's all a game. Like, that's what it is, man.
Exactly. You just have to learn to play the game. You know, so some people, you know what I found in business. The aesthetic principle still carries over because, in my eyes, there are certain standards. You know, within business, they call it business ethics. So, you know, but a lot of people don't hold up those same values and ethics even within business. To me personally, it's disrespectful. It's very disrespectful, and I take it so personal. There's something that I'm really struggling with. Like, man, this is business. How do you even treat consumers or customers, or even, you know, potential business partners? Just the small things, man, that in my eyes are the big things in relation to business. So how you handle business, in my eyes, says a lot about yourself in your personal life and things like that. So I try to toe the line, you know, as much as possible. But business keeps you on point, keeps you sharp. So that way, when you're looking at your personal life in the mirror, you'll be able to at least want to clean it up.
Right.
You know, if anything is, you know, what you need to work on. So.
Yeah, and along with ethics are standards. And
exactly.
so, you know, you look at somebody else who doesn't have ethics up to your standards.
Right.
You've got to look at that person and be like, you know, I appreciate your enthusiasm.
Right.
But if, you know, I have certain levels that you need to get to before there's really going to be a possibility of us working together on something.
Right.
And, you know, especially the person that you're saying that to might be like, why are you being a jerk? You know, why are you trying to, you know, act like I don't have talent or whatever?
Right.
But they've got to see the bigger picture that they really do have some growing to do a lot of the time before they're going to be ready for what you're doing.
Sure, right.
And it, you know, if you don't do that and cut off some people who aren't really ready, then you're going to end up with a crappy whatever you're working on.
Right.
Like it's going to turn out unprofessional, and it's not going to be what you want it to be.
Exactly. Right.
So you can't let, you know, it's sounds mean and cruel to say it this way, but you can't let those people drag you down. You've got to be like, look, I'll give you whatever advice I can, and in a few years, if you're ready, I'll definitely work with you.
Right.
There's just, you know, you got to have standards.
Right. That's right.
But speaking of business, you were saying something about a coffee brand?
Yeah, I'm so excited about it. I'm a distributor actually for Organo Gold Coffee.
Say that again?
Organo Gold Coffee.
Organo Gold.
Yes.
Interesting.
Organo Gold. It's a very it's becoming a very popular brand of coffee. What it is, it's some people may have heard of it as a multi-level marketing business, but me personally, I'm treating it like, man, this thing is a gold mine for myself. I've always looked for, you know, a commodity, something that would that is already, that basically can sell itself, you know, and coffee, this opportunity, you know,
people are addicted to coffee.
It's
not going anywhere.
It's like, man, I mean, it's
fallen into a perfect place between being viewed as a drug and being viewed as a plant, because there are some things that are, you know, are in that mix, like marijuana. It's a plant, but it's also considered a drug. So people are like, no, you know, at least from a legal standpoint, people are like, no, we're not supporting that. But coffee also has drugs in it, caffeine, but people are so addicted to it. They're like, yeah, I gotta have coffee every day, you know, a couple times a day, 3 times a day,
a few times a
depending on who it is and how busy they are and how little sleep they get. But you know, very few people fall off of the coffee bandwagon. So that's something that you're going to be able to continue. You know.
Exactly. That's one reason I'm very excited about it. But another reason are the health benefits behind it. You know, this particular coffee, we have what's called Ganoderma, and it's a natural herb which comes from Asia. It's very old, but the benefits behind it, you know, incorporating that within the coffee is what sets us apart from other brands, like, you know, well, I won't say their names, but you know, but you know, and nobody's really pitching the ill effects that coffee can have on you, you know. But when you incorporate a healthy coffee, but at the same time you're able to now don't get it twisted when I say, like, there's going to be caffeine in our coffee, but at the same time, it's not to where you're going to be you're not going to be, I guess, appearing as some addict, you know, to where you have to have multiple cups because of what the caffeine does to you. But that Ganoderma.
You know, what is that? Like, is that an additive to the coffee beforehand, or
it's an herb. It's an herb. It comes from the mushrooms in Asia. So pretty much we make that, produce it basically, process it with the coffee. So it's already included, prepackaged. And everything.
Is that pre-ground coffee? Like, does it go into the packaging? Is it applied to the coffee while it's growing? Like, how does that work exactly?
Actually, it's all processed together. So our coffee is delivered ready, just ready to hit hot water.
Okay.
You know, and you're
so
good
the
to
beans
go.
are actually treated with
Exactly
the organoderma?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. Is it like sprayed on? I mean, I'm just
No,
trying to get a mental
it's,
image of how that works.
No, it's not. It's not sprayed on. It's actually is I haven't seen behind the doors, you know, as far as how they pretty much compact it and put it together. But
okay.
It's there.
Yeah,
it's definitely there. The benefits are there.
Sure.
The health benefits are there. You can Google it. You can do the research history on it, and you know there aren't any knocks against it at all.
So it basically, what does the organoderma do? You said it you don't feel
right
like an addict afterwards. How does that?
You have at least about maybe 6+ different benefits of what it's doing to your body. Number one, it may have even calmed nerves in general. You're not, how a person may even be going off 2 or 3 cups of coffee, and they basically can't sleep, because of the coffee and that lingering effect. You're not going to experience that. You're not going to, and it's almost like one of those 5-hour type drinks.
Yeah.
It's going to take you up, and then it's going to drop you off. You're not going to have that type of effect.
Right. You're not going to feel the crash.
No, you're not. You're not at all. You're not at all. But it's phenomenal, man. It's so phenomenal. If anything, I would suggest anybody to, if you're interested, contact me. Again, like I said, I'm working as a distributor.
How can we contact you?
Well, easily, you can, of course, catch me on Facebook at Aesthetic Principle, or you can pretty much call the cell phone line. I don't have a problem giving that out at 502-417-6355. You also can email me, Shipley_Adrian@yahoo.com. But as far as with the coffee, Louisville hasn't even scratched the surface, but Louisville's a very big city for drinking coffee. People love their coffee.
There are so many coffee shops everywhere.
Right. So this is going to be fun. This is going to be fun, just working as a distributor alone. I'll be pretty busy, but hey, at the same time I'll enjoy it. Definitely.
Yeah. It sounds like you're involved in several really interesting things.
Right.
Although I did hear something about you being a retired freedom fighter, which seems slightly contradictory because you don't seem retired at all. But
man, nah, man. I think since the last time, I guess an episode or a situation happened, I decided to retire. I did decide to retire. When I say I'm retired, I devoted a lot of my years to fighting. For truth, if you follow what I'm saying, following for truth, whether it's quote unquote, not necessarily civil rights, because I think that's our generation is past, that particular era per se, but just some of the things that, just dealing with whether you're an immigrant, whether you're Black American, whether you're
just any kind of prejudice.
Any type of prejudice, man. In my opinion, truth is truth. Equality for all. I mean, if that's what you're going to base your principles off of.
Truth is not relative.
Exactly. Stand on those things. Make it fair across the board for everybody. And I've always been someone who was very vocal about XYZ, whatever was going on here. And I realized that a lot of my energy was going towards that, and not to say I really wasn't seeing a lot of change, but at the same time, people are going to do what they want to do.
Right.
Therefore, I'm realizing, hey, I can share information, I can share my thoughts, but at the end of the day, it's going to be ultimately what this person decides to do, and I can't change them. I can say something, but I can't change people who don't want to be changed.
Right.
And I've ran across it's like fighting against a wall.
Yeah.
And that's why I say I'm retired. I'm done. I'm not going to put forth spend that energy doing that. And I'd rather just say, hey, if you ask, I'll give my opinion. You know, but other than that, nah.
I think one of the interesting things I've come up with as far as that is concerned is that you've got to spend less time trying to convince people of things and spend more time just living your life in the way that you feel like is you know, the right way to live it. And so, you know, by living your life in a positive way, you know, in a constructive way, you're able to show people you know, that is your lifestyle, and that, you know, those are the things that you're trying to progress and whatnot. So you know, it's in the same way you are, you know, you can convince people, but you know, as far as, you know, and I've struggled with this as well, but as far as going directly to somebody and saying, you know, this is what I think and this is why you should agree with me, a lot of people are like, well, you know, that's what you think, so how are you the authority on what we're talking about? So, so yeah, it can be really frustrating for sure.
And draining.
Oh yeah.
So
you talk to somebody and you're in your head, you're like, you are so completely wrong and backwards about what you're saying, and yet, you know, you're not listening to this truth that I'm saying. And most of those people would retort with, you're not listening to me. And, you know, in my experience, that's not the case. I am listening to them, and they're just not getting what my point is, but I'm sure that they feel the same way about me. So yeah, you know, you're obviously living it now more than, you know, whereas, and that makes sense for you to say you're a retired freedom fighter, because
you know, when I remember I'm a big fan of music, but in particular, you know, hip hop, one of my favorite artists that drops I don't want to call it, to me it's not hidden gems or jewels, but so much wisdom, in my opinion. And that's he takes a lot of knocks for it, but that's Jay-Z. Jay-Z's a very wise dude, but I remember him saying in one particular line from what I think it was off of the Blueprint album, and we was speaking about saying how a wise man told him, don't argue with fools, because people from a distance can't tell who's who. You know, so I held on to that, man. I was like, you know what?
I heard something similar to that was like, it's better to be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. Which is the same kind of, but not exactly the same. But yeah, if somebody sees you arguing with somebody who's being foolish, all they can hear is somebody being foolish.
Exactly.
And you're gonna look foolish. So. As a transition, did we already talk about you being a father?
Yeah, we touched.
Did we talk that? All right. I know we talked about it earlier. I get a little confused every once in a while. I know you've got some other ventures going on, as far as beyond just the aesthetic principle and beyond your clothing line and everything.
Yeah, and the coffee
and everything.
I'm actually pursuing having my hands in the travel world as well. So.
Interesting,
man.
I'd like to travel a lot. So
yeah, I got my hands in a lot of pots. But at the same time, it falls back to lifestyle. These are things that I feel like if I'm going to do it, I should get paid to do it.
Yeah,
you know. So that's why I do some of those things that I'm invested in. So you know, it only makes sense.
Are you planning to tie that back into the aesthetic principle and the whole business consulting lifestyle?
It's yeah.
Because I could definitely see how, you know, as far as business consulting, like that there would be a lot involved with traveling to different places, and as far as making networking connections, but also, you know, just traveling to different places. Like it's an important part of it.
But being able to also arrange trips for other people, for groups. And, you know,
you said earlier you were bringing in a photographer a few months ago for a project you were working on. So it only makes sense. If I'm going to travel, somebody else is wanting to travel and they want to go through my organization, be my guest. You know, so it only makes sense since I'll get paid for it. Why not? You know, it's just good business. Well, we're just hit 40 minutes. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on before we end this out? Or
no, man, I'm just excited to have finally had the time you know, and the mind, the energy
yeah.
to come sit down. We've put it out for so long.
Yeah, we've been talking about working on something for a while.
Right. So I'm glad we was able to knock it out. From here, I think it'll just be, you know, boom.
Yeah.
You know.
That's another thing that we should talk about. Adrian's interested in producing his own show,
right?
In association with Maplex Monk and the creative community, and that's something that I've been looking at expanding to for a while. Is getting other people who are interested and had the drive and had the motivation to do that.
Right.
I don't know how often you wanted to do a show, but at least once a month.
Yeah,
if you wanted to do it more often than that, that would be cool.
At least once a month, right?
Okay. But yeah, and then definitely to start out with once a month would probably be the easiest thing to do.
Right.
But obviously we'll talk about that more later on. But I am excited to have you back again in the near future. And, you know, if you want to have your own interview guests, if you want to have your own musical guests or just roundtable discussions, like whatever you'd like to do,
right.
Definitely be interested in getting that set up for you. This has been Sessions with Maplex. Today we've had on the show Adrian Shipley, founder of The Aesthetic Principle. Got his hands in a lot of pots. As do we all, it seems, these days. I've definitely been working on a lot of things myself. But we're going to go ahead and close this show out. We love you, Louisville, America in general, the world. This is Sessions with Maplex. You all have a wonderful day.
Peace.
Thank you.